Hello, good afternoon to each one of you present here today. Thank you for making the time to come here. I would like to introduce the speaker for today's session, Dr. Saradamoyee Chatterjee. She is a Barry Fellow and Director of Studies in Land Economy at Lucy Cavendish College. She was an affiliated lecturer at the Center for Development Studies, University of Cambridge until last year. At the center, she led a course for the MPhil students that discussed key aspects of migration, forced migration, and human and organ trafficking. Before this, she was a postdoctoral research associate at the World Human Institute, St. Edmund's College, University of Cambridge. Her research explored the illegal organ trade in India. She completed a PhD from the University of Delhi, India. Her research interests explore the intersections of migration, human and organ trafficking, gender, climate change, and disability. Her latest publication is a co-edited book, Coercion and Trust. Okay. I'm extremely pleased and honored to have you here, Doctor. It's a privilege for us at CLIA. So without any further ado, I would like to invite our speaker for the day to take the session. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this kind introduction. And sorry for being a few minutes late. I had some issues with uploading my pen drive. Okay, without much delay, I will straight start with my presentation. This project was part of my postdoc study at University of Cambridge. It was a project on illegal organ trade in different countries, such as Turkey, and I focused Turkey, China, and I focused on India. And my presentation will have different sections. First, I will give a general introduction on organ trade, how it emerged, and also discuss who will be more vulnerable to give up their organs. And then I will go on to focus on India, the study I conducted in 4 cities, including Chennai. So how organ trade emerged in the world. So anyway, we are living in an era of globalized capitalist economy where medical treatment has transcended borders. And now human beings have developed different taste of new tissues, new organs, new types of reproduction, new way to produce next generation, for example, surrogacy. And one of the very, very prominent part of these globalized transactions is organ trade, organ transplantation. Yes, some part of the organ transplantation is definitely not illegal, but when it involves in a country where there is very weak medical regulations, and so people have taken advantage, and not only weak medical regulations, very low organ donations, that is very low supply of organs. So in some countries, there are organ transplantation which is not legal. So now, as I say, that in a globalized capitalist economy, we have now organ transplants taking place in a transnational space where both donors and organ recipients are coming from different parts of the world to meet perhaps in a third country to get the transplant done. So organ transplantation is considered a victim of its own success. Why it is so? When it is a lifesaver, why it is a victim of its own success? So today I will primarily focus on kidney transplant because, as you are aware, that we can survive with one kidney. So that's why the other spare kidney can be donated to save someone's life, primarily to save someone's life. However, before there was organ transplantation, a choice for a patient with end-stage renal disease was either death or dialysis or death. So you might be aware that there are some diseases which leads to end-stage renal failure. For example, diabetes, hypertension, high cholesterol, high uric acid. If they are not treated, then that will first lead to chronic kidney disease, and again from chronic to end-stage renal disease. And when it reaches end-stage renal disease, so the patient, the best way to survive is organ transplantation. And but in most countries, they are not able to provide a donor organ. So the other way to survive is dialysis. So before organ transplantation was invented, then the choice of a patient was either death, dialysis or death, because dialysis is a very cumbersome process where the patient has to frequently go to the hospital to get it done. So, but that way organ transplantation increases the quality of life. So there was the first organ transplantation was in 1950s. That it was in Boston by Murray brothers, and that was performed between identical twins. And why it was a successful. You might know why it is identical twins, because the less chance of rejection. But after that, the transplant medicine could not progress much forward because every patient with ASRD will not have an identical twin. So for some time, the organ transplant medicine could not progress much because of lack of donor organs. And even from within the family, yes, close blood relatives can donate, but sometimes that is also not possible. If the parents are too old, they are not able to donate, and lack of matching, different factors, the family members are also not able to donate. So organ transplant medicine could not progress much further after the first initial success. Then there was a landmark discovery. This landmark discovery was a um, discovery of a wonder drug. It is cyclosporin. And why it is wonder drug? Because if this drug was not there, there wouldn't have been any organ trade today. This wonder drug actually is an anti-rejection drug, where even if a donor is not totally matched, can donate an organ, but has to take this if this anti-rejection drug is given to the patient. So this was actually a very landmark discovery, which opened a transplant industry in the whole world. And initially, it was in the Western countries, in the global North. Then, when it reached global South, for example, a country like India, and then it opened a huge transplant industry. And when this drug was invented, then there was huge increase in transplantation rate, because transplant between non-related donors were a possibility. So then any stranger with a relatively good match can donate an organ. And that's why it says the victim of his own success. If there was not this drug, there wouldn't have been any organ trade. So as you might understand, why there is only a market in kidney trade, as I mentioned, 2 kidneys, 1 can be given. So, and this commodified kidney is a primary currency now in this trade. So scarcity of so kidney can be, if you might be aware, or we can donate organs after death and some organs before, like kidney. But WHO ethical principles and advocates donation from deceased people, because then a healthy person's body is not impacted. But very even although the Western countries have still progressed much on disease donation, in countries in the global South are very have little progress. So because of the scarcity of organs, especially from brain dead patients, and this demand supply gap in organs, we have a market in kidney, and it's a globalized market now. Although there are huge domestic market as well, but in this globalized era now, it's a global market where donor from one country, recipient in one country meet in a third country. For example, someone from Boston and someone from India or Pakistan or Bangladesh should meet in South Africa to have the transplant done. So it's a globalized trade now. And there are some sections of population who are more vulnerable, for example, migrants and refugees, because they are in high poverty and debt, the few factors which fuel the organ trade. Not only the demand supply gap in organs, but poverty, debt, illiteracy, which will fuel the trade. So, who are the primary actors in this trade? So, there are the recipients who are in desperate need to survive, and there are the donors who want to have some relief from their poverty and debt. They might be in huge debt and they never have seen, they need a money in bulk, so they will sell their kidney to get that money to pay back the debt, although they are very quickly back in poverty. And then the brokers who play a pivotal role in this trade, because they are the person who will hunt for these poor sellers, and then they facilitate the whole business. And of course, transplant professionals. Without the transplant professionals who will conduct the transplant, this trade cannot go on. And of course, the other facilitators in the hospital and all in the villages who conduct this trade. And this is, and all these actors then all participate what we call transplant tourism. So transplant tourism is when different there is, because there are disparities not only in cost and also medical facilities. Some countries have better transplant facilities and some countries don't, and that has created transplant tourism. And there are some countries like India who have very good medical facilities, and India will attract patients from several parts of the world. And this way, there is this transplant tourism has occurred, and where patients will come from different countries to other countries to get the transplant done. It is not always illegal because some country one can very well get a medical treatment in any country, but it will be illegal if any patient will buy a donor. If the patient brings a donor, like for example, a relative, to get a transplant done, for example, in India, that's not illegal. But then there is why it is slightly looked at skepticism, because that has hidden trade, hidden exploitation involved for, and so anyone, I mean, a foreign donor can try to buy a local donor to get a transplant done. So these are some of the list of donor countries and recipient countries, and there are more. And because it is a hid, as I said, it's a very hidden trade. Hidden because sellers will not report they have done something illegal, and buyers are buying a kidney to save life. They won't report either. So actual estimation of the trade is very, very difficult. It is said around between 5 to 10% of all the transplant around the world is paid. So these are all illegal, but this is a very low estimate, I would say. And a kidney is sold in the market around $40,000 to $200,000. And who are as you can see, who are the kidney sellers? Poor uneducated men or women in their 30s, and recruited from different places, and especially slums are the gold mine for hunting for these kidney sellers. And the recipient countries, as you can see, Middle East, which do not have, sometimes they have religious prohibitions on organ transplant, and some countries, the countries in the global north, like UK, USA, their medical cost is very high, so patients might like to come to a country like India where they can get a transplant at a much cheaper cost. And those are the donor countries. I'll discuss more about these countries, and my focus will be on India. This is the movement of donor kidneys around the world. As you can see, this is the red is our donor countries. Actually, this market is called red market, although it is not a very academically established word, but because the market deals with blood, tissues, organs, it is called a red market. That's why this red color is used when we are discussing kidney trade. So you can see all the wealthy countries like USA, Canada are the recipient countries, UK, Australia, but all the middle income countries are the donor countries. Please feel free to stop me if you have any question. Now I will come to the major focus of my study, which is my study was based in India. So this was a mixed method study, which I conducted in 4 cities of India, 4 metropolitan cities, that is Kolkata, Mumbai, Chennai, and Delhi. And these are the these are the participants in the study, like transplant professions, transplant coordinators, government health official, commercial organ donors, and receivers. So in a whole transplant medicine, there are some key actors. For example, of course, there are transplant surgeons, and there are nephrologists who are kidney specialists who first diagnose the problem. And then there are in the hospitals, there are transplant coordinators who coordinate the whole transplant process. For example, if there is a brain dead patient, they will interview the family. They will counsel the family, not interview, sorry. They will counsel the family very gently. They will counsel the family, making them aware and motivating them to donate the organ. Because one body, one deceased donor can save 40 lives. So there's a huge potential. So the transplant coordinator playing a pivotal role in the whole process, counseling the family to donate organ. And of course, there are government health officials who form the policies and oversee the whole process, and of commercial organ donors and receivers. Yes.
Why commercial organ donors is not mean legal, illegal, both?
And commercial means illegal because payment is illegal in most countries. So in most countries, to give you a slight little, in paying for organs or buying organs is illegal in all countries of the world except one country, which is Iran. Iran has a legalized system of organ trade, state facilitated. So, but otherwise, everywhere it is illegal. There are some countries which provide incentives, for example, health insurance and all, but not actual payment. So, what I mean here, I said I have interviewed a couple of commercial organ donors in Chennai and couple of receivers. So I have really kind of experienced their hapless situation, which made them one sell, another buy organs. In what situation? So first part of my study was just doing a secondary data analysis of the incidences of organ trade in India. The earliest one, which was reported, as you can see, it was in 2003. What happened before that? Why 2003? I can give you a history of transplantation process in India. So transplantation is nothing new for India. If we go back to thousands of years ago, our old sages like Charak and Susruta, they are very familiar with transplantation process. And Sushruta, I mean, they develop face reconstruction surgery. So transplantation is not new to our medical system. But of course, everything got lost. And then India was able to establish good transplant procedure by late 1970s, after the cyclosporin was discovered, and then India was able to discover good transplant system in some parts of the primarily metropolitan cities of the country. And to go back, even the Hindu mythology also gives example of early head transplantation. Can you give an example? What I'm referring to by head transplantation? Yes, Lord Ganesha, exactly. So, and apparently that was an example of one of the earliest transplantation. And after the transplantation, apparently Lord Shiva gave something to drink to Ganesha, and which we're interpreting it as an anti-rejection drink. So, yes, our Hindu mythology gives a very good example of, should give us very good organ transplantation. So it's nothing new to us. But in modern days, scientists are able to establish good transplant system by late 1970s. And then India started producing the drugs by the anti-rejection drug also. And then, you know what happened? Then India was a huge transplant industry to the whole world. When and then patients from several Middle Eastern countries and UK, USA were coming to India. So 1980s was kind of an organ bazaar for in India. It was an organ bazaar, and there was no control, no regulation. Organs have been sold by unscrupulously because it was not illegal. It was not legal that it was state facilitated by like Iran, but it was not illegal. So it was yes, please.
I just recollected in my student years in 80s. I mean, once there was this mid 80s, there's this big news about theft of organs.
That's true.
Which was happening in some big hospitals.
That's true. Yes, yes. And which that's the reason which was prohibited now.
Surreptitiously stealing parts of people.
Sure, you're right. You're right. There is a very good article by Achara, a very famous nephrologist for India. She gives very good account. So definitely 1980s, this was going on. So organs have been taken without the knowledge of the patients that they are going to the hospital with some other ailment and working up without their organ. So that was case, and so as I said, patients from all over the world come to India and these brokers. That was the time when this group of touts and brokers emerged to facilitate this organ trade process, and they will go to the slums. There were gold mines. Slums were considered gold mine for organ trade. They will just identify pockets of poverty and then lure them to selling their organs and at a very nominal price. That's why India was an organ bazaar, because one is cheaper medical cost, and then they can buy an organ at a very nominal price. So patients from all over the world will come to India to get a transplant done. But then there were complaints in that bazaar, because one was organs being taken without the knowledge of the patient. Second was they're not paid. Sometimes they are paid very little, whatever the promise, because these are brokers. They will say something and don't pay. And third was they're not paid at all. Either not paid at all or paid very little. So all these complaints from the donors compelled the government of India to enact Transplantation of Human Organs Act 1994, which totally prohibited the sale in organs. That's what I say. The early cases, there might be, but reports, it's all from newspapers, because hardly any other articles are written on this. So, one of the earliest case detected was 2003. Because 1994, the trade became illegal. And for some time, the brokers went underground, as it happens. Suddenly, they found now how can we facilitate the process. But after a while, they learned to take advantage of the loopholes in the law, and they were back in business again. So I'll come to the fact slightly later what were the loopholes in the law which facilitate the trade. So why I tried to highlight it that in red, because as I was saying that there are people who are vulnerable, that is poor migrant laborers, they were vulnerable. Again, poor donors. So then 2004 tsunami, that was a very, very typical case. After tsunami, the fishing community, the evidence says that in the fishing community, almost every household sold kidney to pay off the debt. Tsunami. So after, again, another typical intersection is after a disaster, any natural disaster, there is escalation in poverty and debt, and which will lead to more organ sale. So tsunami was a very, very blatant example that how that led to organ sale. Then this was the Gurgaon case of 2008 actually opened that actually attracted a lot of media attention, both national and international, because as you can see, 500 illegal transplants were taken. Illegal transplants have been done. Then gradually, every year, then Mostly all cases are story of poverty and debt, and there are you can see the Andhra Pradesh case, farmers in drought hit region again, climate change, natural disasters, how that can lead to poverty, debt, and then organ sale. And so they're not able to pay debt, and corporate hospitals track these poor farmers and clearing their loans. And the very prominent case was, sorry, this I haven't given the date, that was an Apollo just a few years before. I think a couple of years before, the Delhi Apollo Hospital, again, big racket was caught, and the transplant license was suspended for some time. So 1994 prohibited the sale, but then because demand never reduced, issue is, and supply was too low. So something has to fill that gap. Some brokers took advantage, feeling is that the illegal trade emerged. So fast forward to 2024. What kind of trade is going on now? Fast forward to 2024, and the trade still goes on. This is very recent case, July 2024. July 2024, see, an MBA graduate nailed a poor unemployed kidney donors, and several, just very recently is called, and 34 transplant in 11 hospitals in 5 states, including Delhi, Gurgaon. Meanwhile, can anyone with the internet? I can show it later. I just wanted to show the news, yeah. Just not a visual, just the newspaper. Oh, I'll continue. Meanwhile, if you can do the net. So that was the case in 2024, and the trade is still going on. So my study primarily revisited factors which still sustains the trade. 1994, we enacted the Act, but this is 2024. I conducted this study between 2012 to 2014. And that time, and we have so many reports of the trade, and 2024 still goes on. So I wanted to explore what are the factors which still sustains the trade. And I interviewed, to discuss this factor, I interviewed 42 medical professionals, that is nephrologists and transplant surgeons, to understand their opinion, why the trade is still going on, and what can we do about it to control. And so I interviewed these medical professionals, as I mentioned, 4 cities, and also some health officials, government health officials, and I'll gradually discuss their opinion. So the major cause, they said, is the gap in the demand and supply in organs. That is still continues to be the major factor which is facilitating the organ trade. So I'll slightly discuss more why there is still a huge gap in demand and supply in organs. So as you can see, there are 17,000 to 18,000 solid organ transplants performed every year in India. The most in the world after US and China, but remains behind several high-income countries in transplantation rates per million population. So if you see, it's only 0.65 per million population. This is donor transplantation, and our solid organ transplantation. And average number of deceased donor transplantation varies from 2.43 to 3.05. And so we hugely lag behind in other developed countries like Spain, which is around 47 per million population. That is, Spain has the highest number of organ donation per million population. After Spain is the USA, then other countries like UK, developing countries, Brazil has a slightly better organ donation rate, but India does very poorly in terms of organ donation system. Yes, please.
Uh, your first point, the part that what remains behind is a bit high income, that's fine. Uh, per million population, does it mean that most of the transportation are happening for recipients who are not Indian?
Sorry?
So the first part or the first point is that there are many transportations that happen in India just after China and US. But when you take the ratio with respect to transportation per population, it's low. Does that mean that most of the recipients are non-Indian in this case?
No, no. It is saying how many transplants per million population in each country. So 0.65 per million population. That's what it is saying. And organ donation rate also, I think around something like that, 0.08 per million population. Whereas Spain is 47 per million population. That's the statistics they are giving. How many transplants per million population? So when it is saying 70,000, 18,000, you might think, oh, quite a lot. But because we have a huge population, and if you see the average statistics, then it is very low. For a small country, UK might be good 17,000, 18,000, but for our population, and if when I go to the waiting people in the waiting list, that will even give you a better idea. Now, you would say how many 100,000 patients are waiting? More than 100,000, actually, 103 something. They are in the transplant waiting list. It will be even more. This is just an estimate. Some say between 100 to 200,000. So, and you can see how many are done. And always there is a more demand for kidney transplantation. And by March 2024, I mean, this is one of the latest data, how many are done. So this is the average, this is the patients on the waiting list. So what happens, most remain in the waiting list and they end up dying. They don't get organ to be transplanted because of we have very, very low organ donation rate. And then that's the reason, and because for surviving it is so crucial, so there is some brokers who are facilitating this organ trade. And if I give you an compare globally, similarly, there are other countries which have weak medical regulation like South Africa, and it is known for illegal transplants. So these are one major cause was that demand and supply, the gap in demand and supply, and that there are some factors which fuel the trade. That yes, demand and supply, the people need organs, but there has to be some other things which can really make the trade happen, and that is because some rich people have the capacity to buy, and there are poor people who need money. So poverty, which again fuels the trade, facilitate the trade, and the poverty, easy availability to poor donors. But then medical malpractice, of course, there has to be some doctors who will be ready to perform, ready to do those illegal transplants. And one of the very major factors is loopholes in the Transplantation of Human Organs Act, which have really fueled the trade. This I would like to discuss a bit more, and you'll understand how loopholes in the law can facilitate a trade. So one of the this is the 1994 Act, which is later been amended, but initially the Section 9(1), which gives a list of donors, and it gave very close relatives, for example, parents and spouse, and which means they have really kept the donor pool. Donor pool, I mean, the first degree relative who can donate easily, very, very limited. And that has been highly criticized in the Indian system because in the Indian system, grandparents are equally, very, very equally involved, equally close to the family. Why they are not included in the list? And Then the section 9.3, which was very crucial, it says donation out of affection. That is, if someone is not blood related, they can donate, but it has to be out of affection, means out of friendship, out of altruism, but which means he cannot take payment. And the brokers, they highly took advantage of section 9.3 because they will then tell anyone, they can train or coach anyone, any poor person, in such a way that they will say, okay, no, I'm donating out of affection, I haven't taken any money. And there is a very famous nephrologist who has really criticized and says that I do not understand how a very poor slum dweller develops so much affection for a millionaire and donate a vital organ whom they haven't seen few weeks before. But it is so hard to prove these things because if money is exchanged behind the door and someone is saying that I haven't taken any money, it's very hard to prove. Although there are hospital authorization committees who does initially interview both the donors and receivers to understand whether the transplantation is ethical. I mean, as much they can, they try to, they sometimes say no. I mean, my nephrologist says that we sometimes say no, that when we see there is a huge gap between age and huge gap between economic status, very poor, very rich, because we suspect the money we have exchanged hands. We do refuse sometimes, but not every time we can because there is no proof. And for example, there's one of the hospitals cited a case that a very young man wanted to donate a kidney to an old lady, and the father came with the son, and the father said, "We know this family for a long time, and we are I'm giving up. I am giving my consent for my son, and the son also agrees to give kidney to a very elderly woman." And the hospital refused. And they came twice, and hospital refused because they generally do not encourage such a very man in mid-20s to give up a vital organ of the body. But they said sometimes they are allowed to go to the court to take permission, and the court gives, if the court gives permission, we don't say no. We can't say no. So, and similar case, like if a driver says that my employer has looked after me for last 20 years and all, so now I want to save his life, so I want to give up I can donate my kidney. So such kind of cases, they were saying it is very difficult to detect or that any foul play has going on. Yes, please.
So is the patient the one who needs to find the kidney, or is there a
Well, no. Usually, yeah, if they know each other, yeah, usually that's true. Because there is a huge transplant waiting list, and government is not able to provide. So if that way, if someone from the family wants to donate, mother, siblings, fine. And otherwise, if someone known to them wants to donate a kidney, so then it's fine. Otherwise, government cannot provide a kidney as it is in other developed countries. There is waiting list, but still people do get a transplant an organs to transplant. So that's the way. So that's the reason most of the time patients have to arrange their own donor, and there the brokers play a major role. They will try to identify some patient who desperately needs an organ, and they try to lure them that I will give you a good match. The huge deception goes on in that. So then further, the punishment level in the previous act was so low that it will not deter anyone, any of the perpetrators to commit the act. Very low, some 10,000 rupees fine or some subject. And they earn anyway so much from the bias, that much punishment is nothing. And of course, the poor enforcement of act. The act not only prohibited the sale of organ, but also identified brain dead and organ donation from brain dead patients. But to retrieve organ from brain dead patients, the country, you are very much aware our medical healthcare system. And this transplantation is a very, very specialized healthcare system. And all the cities or all everywhere to have a very good medical healthcare system to retrieve organs from brain dead patients, there needs to be a lot of allocation of funds from the government, and our country, majority of population don't receive very basic health care, and transplant is a very specialized system of health care. So, as an end result is that the act was supposed to facilitate deceased donation program, establishment of proper healthcare system in everywhere in the country, so that there can be more retrieval of organs from brain dead patients. To give an example, as you know, there are a high rate of road accident victims in India. Even if the 50% of victims can reach hospital on time, there won't be any organ shortage. But first, our traffic, our all ambulance and everything, they will not reach hospital on time. And secondly, most hospitals will not have a trained transplant team to retrieve the organs. And not only retrieving, then quickly that needs to be transported to maybe another hospital where another patient is waiting for a heart transplant. As I said, one patient can save 40 lives. But that needs a very strong organ sharing network also, not only donation and sharing network. There is a very good NGO in Chennai, Shroff Foundation, Mohan Foundation, that is working very well in this. I did interview the founder of the organization. So, which promotes organ donation, organ sharing. And so low political will actually to improve the healthcare system in every way, and also including this that facilitates the trade. And poor enforcement of the act, which was not even to neither catch the perpetrators, not put them, not punish them, and neither they increase the organ donation rate. So that was amended both in 2011 and 2014. And in 2011 amendment, they increase the donor pool, that is the 9.1, they include the grandparents. And then for 9.3 also, they have made stronger measures. For example, they have to provide stronger proofs to show the relation that they know for a long time, or to establish that donating out of affection something. But of course, you can see 2024, the trade is still going on, so still poor enforcement of the act, and also very still organ donation rate is very low. And one reason is lack of awareness or illiteracy, and also that another factor is religious myths and misconceptions, which prevents organ donation. Whereas our religion, Dan, is considered a very virtuous act. And saving someone's life, again, a virtuous act. But in spite of that, have very low organ donation rate. And there are myths and misconceptions. You may have heard that if you donate your eyes, someone will born without eyes in the next birth, and all these kind of myths. Then there are myths of being haunted by the ghost, like the person's organ, the ghost will. And there are Bollywood movies also which are showing this, that if someone taking a heart, and then that person develops the characteristics of the person. So all these misconceptions prevents organ donation. Fear of ghosts. So all these factors, and then who wins in this trade? The brokers, the organized criminal networks, who just facilitate the trade. So part of my study was, as I said, interviewing the commercial donors. So I interviewed two commercial donors in Chennai, two women who had to give up their organs out of poverty. So one of the case was a 37-year-old woman residing who sells her kidneys to save her husband's life. Now, the husband bought a tuk-tuk. Sorry, not tuk-tuk, an auto rickshaw. Actually, I'm used to saying tuk-tuk in Cambridge because everyone understands tuk-tuk. So he took loan from a village moneylender to buy auto rickshaw. And the auto rickshaw did not earn well, and so his interest rates increased. And you may be aware that in the village, these money lenders are very powerful people. And then the money lender started threatening the life of this woman's husband. And then that time, of course, the family is already in poverty. The woman was a part-time cleaner in a wedding hall, again very low income, because when there will be some wedding, she will get some job to clean and get money. So very poor family, and with mounting debt, and the daughter's marriage was also coming up, so the family needed a lot of money at bulk. And then contracted a broker from this village, yeah, was actually, I found from the literature, was one time quite many from that village are sold or kidney from that village. And so it was not very difficult for her to find a broker and selling her kidney. So, but as it happens in the kidney trade, the brokers never pay the full amount. So she got only half of the amount of the money. And from that, of course, they paid the loan they paid back the loan to the money lender, and rest of the money they used for the daughter's marriage. And the money is gone. They are back to poverty again. So when I was doing my interview, she was asking if you can help me with some kind of financial assistance. I mean, again, I can. What's the way? I mean, I can again. It will be a little help, and then she'll back to poverty. So it's a recurring cycle of poverty. So I will later on discuss what are the impact of kidney sale. So, and she was saying, and after it is a major operation, and they should take a great care, post-operative care. And but what happens in this illegal trade? They are mostly not given any post-operative care, because the brokers, they do not like to see the donor after they have taken the organ. They send them away because of fear of being caught. So this lady never received any post-operative care, and of course, after coming back home, never got, never able to eat good food or rest to recover from the surgery. And that's what she was saying. And she was saying, I feel very weak and fear for my life. And she was saying, I won't recommend anyone selling kidney. And the second case was interesting because she was, when I interviewed, she was 52-year-old, a widow. But when she sold her kidney in 80s, she was 28, and that time the kidney sale was legal in the country, which means prior 1994, when the kidney sale was legal. And her family was, they were staying in a rented accommodation, and they were not able to pay rent, and they were soon to be evicted. And so, because they're not able to pay rent, so she sold kidney to pay back the rent. And as usual, never received the full money being promised. So the little money, and she received 25,000 rupees that time. And from that 5,000, she paid the broker. And with that 20,000, she bought a piece of land and built a house. And that time, so she was saying that still kidney trade goes on in her village, and she says, I try to stop everyone, but no one listens because everyone needs money. So she also said, I don't recommend selling kidney. So the repercussions, so there are studies, there is one other study in Chennai before, where it has been studied what is the repercussion on the socio-economic and health status of the sellers. There are a couple of studies, one in Chennai and two studies. And both, and come back to this, and both say that the impact on the sellers socio-economically and health-wise is very negative, because one is they never receive the full compensation money, and even if they receive it, they quickly spend, and they're back to poverty again. And health-wise, their health deteriorates, and that also increases their poverty level, because they're never able to earn the same level as they used to before the kidney sale. So economically and health-wise, it all a negative impact. And socially there is a huge stigma attached to kidney sale. They do not like telling anyone they have sold their kidney. The socio-economic health was a negative impact on the sellers. And this is, I mean, I was comparing with another a case in Moldova, where how it is very, very dangerous, that they can be shot if they do not give a kidney. And that seller also sees the operation, I'm unable to work full time and take care of my family. So the negative impact of kidney cell, that social, both health wise and socioeconomically. Now coming to the buyers who receives kidney, what do you think? What would be the impact on them? That is also negative socioeconomic and health impact could be on the buyers. Socioeconomically is sometimes I can tell the two buyers family I interviewed. So one of the family, the first family, she herself was a doctor, and soon after marriage she discovers that her husband 15 within 2 weeks after marriage she discovers her husband has end stage kidney problem, needs a transplant immediately. So tried to find a donor from the family and could not find, and eventually thought of buying a kidney. So both two families I interviewed and they buys kidney. They bought kidney, and I asked them, from where do you get this kidney? Where do you buy them? And it was very simple that when they do not get any donor from the family, they just put advertisement in the newspaper. Those days I'm talking 2012, 13. Now of course everything on the internet. And those simple newspaper advertise, like we always see, with someone needs blood of this blood group, please donate. Similarly, someone needs a kidney, please donate. And then a broker will usually respond to those advertisements, and they make contact, and then they bargain with the money and they say, okay, I'll provide you a 90% match donor and you give me some advance or something. So that was happened. The first buyer of wanted to desperately save her husband's life, and no one donated from the family. And so again, gave a newspaper advertisement, and a broker responds, and okay, promises that you give me a 1 lakh. I'm talking maybe 2010, something like that. When she tried to buy a kidney, or 29, 10, something. And the broker said, okay, give me 1 lakh and I'll give you a perfect match. But of course, thankfully, I don't think she had to pay the whole money before the surgery. And when he brings the donor, the broker, it was turns out to be some 2 to 5% match, the donor, gone. So no possibility of surgery. Some, and again, and brings another donor, and the donor runs away before the surgery. So then transplant could not be done and the husband dies. And she was saying, the way I have been harassed by the broker, the way. And she was really feeling, she was saying everyone sympathizes with the donor because, okay, they are donating kidney, they have been exploited. But no one says our story, that as buyers, what we go through or because of these brokers. So, and she was totally condemning this system, that government cannot provide organs in a legal way, and these hapless families, they have to turn to these brokers to get a donor. And similarly, the second family, similarly, the woman wanted to save her husband's life. Again, gives an advertisement in the newspaper. The brokers, in this case, the broker took some advance and to provide a perfect match, but again turns out to be not a good match, and they lose the money. And they again advertised in the newspaper, and this thankfully second time an independent a young man responds, who is not a broker but who himself wanted to sell kidney to pay back some debt. And anyway, the family was very, very good. So the family looked after the donor, and even after the surgery, generally they don't get any post-operative care, but because this man was just an independent donor, did not come through a broker, the family looked after the donor after the surgery, and he recovered well. But sadly, the the husband who received the organ did not survive because of post-traumatic complication. Definitely the family paid the money. That also borrowed from several sources because not only the surgery, everything, the whole treatment, the transplant, it is very costly. And so the family had to borrow money from several sources for the transplant, paying the donor, but at the end did not survive. The patient did not survive. So everyone was highly criticizing the system that the system could not provide an organ in a legal way. That's why my first article, that's what I discussed, who actually benefits from this trade, not the donor, not the receiver. It's from, even in some cases, although the brokers might provide a donor, and because they're in so much hurry or so much eager to get the money, the profit, they won't even screen the donor before the donation. And so what happens? So one nephrologist in Delhi was saying sometimes the patient get a kidney but comes back to us with for hepatitis or HIV because that's what this kind of they get the patients and they never screen for other diseases like it which is transmitted through blood. So the patients then now have to treat for HIV or hepatitis. Although a kidney may be transplanted, but they get other diseases. So in this black market, sometimes the receivers also are at the very receiving end. They're in worse situations after this transplant. So ultimately, it's the facilitators of the trade, like brokers and all the medical professions who are participating. They are only benefiting from the trade, not the receivers or the donors. Donors, of course, not. They are mostly back into the poverty and debt again. Are there any students of economics here? Have you read Poor Economics? So here, Poor Economics, Abhijit Banerjee, the author said that one-time infusion of money never released them from poverty. So it was a similar case. They just get one-time money and they're back to debt again, and the cycle of poverty goes on. And then another thing he says that poor people have very poor credit habit. They don't put money in bank. Similarly, those two cases, they borrow from the money lender, end up getting very high interest rate. So poor credit habit, poverty all come together. So apart from so this was one of the one part of my study where I discussed. So what can be the way forward? How can we control the trade? So when I was discussing with the one person, one senior officer at the Ministry of Health, he was in Delhi, and he was saying that the trade is much more in control now, especially the trade between foreign patient and local donor. That they prohibit a transplant between a foreign patient and local donor. If a foreign patient has to undergo a transplant, they have to bring their own donor. Unless they say that they have a relative. If there is a sibling or blood relative who can donate, fine. Then another risk, he said, but we cannot prevent if it's a spouse. If a foreign donor marries here someone for kidney, marriage is for kidney donation, and the spouse is allowed to donate, then we can't prevent. But we don't have any report for that. But that was a risk he cited, but there are no reports yet. But there could be. Because one of the buyers, as I mentioned, she discovered within 14 days that her husband has kidney problem. I don't know if the husband wanted to get her kidney that's why he married. But the doctor said she cannot do it. Yes, please.
That just brings to my mind a reverse sort of on the transplant. Farooq Abdullah, how many of you know?
I know.
And he took his wife's kidney, was a relation. It's sort of, she's also quite old.
Yeah,
The guy is doing fine.
that's true. Yes. And then some of the senior other, I think, or other who died for multiple organ failure. I think Sushma Swaraj. Multiple organ failure. Then there is another in 2012. Very senior minister again died of multiple organ failure. Didn't have any donor. A senior minister also could not find any donor to donate. In 2012 case and died. Yes, please.
You get paid for cadavers organs, or is it only a live person?
Live person, because
So,
usually the cadaver and disease donation is very much well regulated through, and it's always have to a family have to give a consent.
no, yeah, suppose
I understand, but so far the trade is with live donors.
it's just a
Yes, yes,
like a life insurance policy, right?
yes.
You can take a policy on your life and bequeath the money that your organs can make.
Mm.
Would that be considered a fair form of trade?
Maybe, but life insurance for organs, if that take a policy. I don't know, no one has done that. But it was again not direct payment. If direct payment. And also it is for your own family, life insurance then. The money will go to your own family, usually or your spouse. So may not be, but if there is some coercion involved, you never know. That you do this, otherwise in our gender imbalanced society, women are often coerced for organs. If they're coerced, that you do that otherwise. Yeah. So that was the health minister official said that there are several risks, but it is much better than before. But because it is such a clandestine trade, so we never know how many are going on. I mean, I think that would be huge number. I mean, much more in number than they are reporting. Mostly because this is a crime where there is actually there is no victim, obvious victim. So who will report? No one is filing an FIR that my kidney is stolen or I am not been paid because they are doing something illegal. So no one will filing a report. So that's the actual extent of the trade. Very difficult to understand. So then my next part was what can we do about it? The transplant professionals were saying that okay, most important, we cannot control this trade from the supply side because even a country like Spain were not able to provide enough organs. Not able to provide enough organs for everyone. But so what can we do? We have to. It's a market, demand and supply. What can we do? Economist, right? It's a market. If you have to, if we don't want this market, what should we do? Yes.
Increase demand.
Decrease demand. Very true. How can we decrease demand?
So you, if you want to increase more illegal organs and you create more legal system.
That you are saying supply, which means increasing the supply, creating more legal ways to get organs, medical improvement, and also people being much more conscious about their health. That if we have to, most important is prevention. As we say, prevention is the most effective way to reduce the demand. So because we, of course, India, we are very high rate of diabetes, but diabetes is a very treatable, very manageable condition. It should not lead to kidney failure if people are aware. So reducing these chronic diseases, reducing the stage where these diseases should progress to the stage of organ failure. That is treating diabetes, hypertension, high blood pressure, treating them well, and also not getting them, maintaining a healthy lifestyle where either want to not get these diseases, or even if you get them, that they should be treated well or managed well so that they should not progress to kidney disease, and which is very, very much possible. Treating diabetes, taking medicine, maintaining a healthy lifestyle. So the doctors were saying it is not in a population like us, it is very difficult to provide so many organs. So very important early screening of these diseases and treating them and managing them well so that they do not progress into the stage of end stage renal failure. And yes, please.
What's the problem with improving the transfer from deceased person?
Coming to that, yes. One is prevention, which is reducing demand as much possible. Second is increasing the supply, of course. Now, increasing the supply from diseased donors, which is, as I said, which is very much possible. We have several road accident victims. Anyone seen the film Traffic? Please watch it. Very, very good. And there are others also. So, how much it is possible? And in Mumbai, I think that's case in Mumbai, doctor family, that was organ donation rate was really progressed well because a doctor family donated their child's organs because died early in an accident. So awareness about disease donation program. One is awareness. As I said, various myths prevent organ donation. There are, I think, very little percentage of the population who have signed the organ donation card, who has taken the pledge. So that is one. And and awareing people of about disease donation after brain death. Brain death. One is brain death, and then brain organ donation from brain dead patients. And most important, the political will to establish hospital centers and transplant professionals who can perform this organ donation procedure to retrieve the organs from rendered patients. So nothing prevents. It's the most effective way to increase the organ donation rate, which all the developed countries have done. Spain, and WHO advocates disease donation program, not live donation, because disease donation means they are not impacting a person's health because they need the kidney. So WHO advocates disease donation program, and nothing prevents except political will in investing more in healthcare. Yes.
When you say Iran is the only place in the provinces,
I will discuss this. Yeah, I haven't come to this yet.
payment for the donation.
Yeah. So the one, then after increasing, of course, increasing the supply, reducing demand, then the third, which is highly debated all over the world, is legalization of the organ trade. Because it is such a reality now, and because the legal way, almost no countries able to meet the demand, there is a huge debate, should we promote this organ donation for payment? And Iran is the only country which has a legalized organ donation system. So yes, there is almost no waiting list. There is no kind of organ trade in Iran because again prohibits donation between foreign patients. It has to be it is all domestic. Most markets are now. In India also the market is very much domestic, and but there is a kind of fixed amount. There is some negotiation and an organization which is kind of a charity which negotiates. So again, the criticism is it again thrives on poverty. Only poor people sells the kidney, and their poverty never goes away even after selling the kidney. Buyers do benefit because they get the organ, also the donors are screened properly, whereas in a illegal market, donors are not screened properly. And the donors are also get post-operative care, but the poor donors, their back other impacts are their health-wise impact, economic impact, and one of the very strong impact is stigmatization, which is prevalent in all over the world. The kidney sellers are highly stigmatized. So they sometimes will not disclose to their own very close friend that they have sold kidney. It is so highly stigmatized. There is another country, Moldova, where again very highly stigmatized. The men who then the kidney sellers were interviewed were saying that when in poverty, women will go into prostitution, and we will sell our kidney. But the difference is women can anytime leave their profession and come back to their original life, but we can't. And those men are not even considered eligible for marriage. They're considered half men. So highly stigmatized uh, organ selling. All over the world, the organ selling is highly stigmatized. So, similarly, when I was discussing this legalization with the medical professionals, they were saying the way blood selling is stigmatized, prostitution is selling body, blood, both are stigmatized in India. Even if you legalize this will be stigmatized too. And like that's a 55% of transplant population that disagreed. Because they say that in our country, no law is properly implemented or regulated. So what will happen when you legalize is those brokers will now get a cover of the law to operate. So organ trade may not go away. Because these poor sellers or poor donors, they may not know, again, the nitty-gritties of the law. And they will be again exploited by these brokers. And again, corruption, weak regulation will defeat the purpose. And exploitation will persist, is high anyway. So this is a huge debate all over the world whether it should be legalized, but no country except Iran is able to implement it because of the ethical issues concerned, highly ethical, because it will thrive on poverty anyway. No rich person will sell a kidney, only poor people. So that's a high ethical debate. And also, WHO advocates autonomous decision while selling or donating a kidney. And okay, you can say a poor person is selling a kidney, but is it real autonomy? Are they? It is. Oh, they're coerced by the situation in selling a kidney. So and so it is highly ethically debated. I can discuss other ethical principles like Kantian or Bentham's utilitarian principles, but won't go into that much detail. So it is a highly ethical debate, legalization of organs, and no, except that's why except Iran, none other country has implemented it. Yes.
Sort of confused about the ethics. The fact that those who are really contributing their organs are desperate enough who wants a part of one's body.
Yeah.
Life is already really bad. Perhaps with regulation of this, where you get your kidneys worth of, and I'm sure there are people who are willing to pay, who have money, but
When there is regulation, there is usually a fixed rate.
regulation could be of a, you set a level which takes you out of poverty at least when you give up part of your body.
Again, temporary temporary relief. There is no, all the study says it's always a temporary relief, but the long term repercussions are, especially on health wise, is always negative. Because when they give up their kidney and they go back to the own same environment, they don't look after themselves well, and they do not eat the right food or stay in a clean, hygienic environment, the recovery is not good. And so, impact on health is worse, and it doesn't take them out of poverty. And because um, a kind of trade where only poor people are involved, so that's why it is such a highly ethical. So issue is, why can't you give better measures to uplift them from poverty? Why should they have to sell their body part to get the money to relieve them from poverty and debt?
So, I mean, this is until we come to a point where we have something for redistribution. So, it just takes me, it's constant taking back Karl Marx's, appropriation surplus labor. So in which, in fact, he's very visceral in terms of the way he always talks about, it is like stealing life. Because your health goes down with the kind of work, excessive labor which is different. So perhaps a conceptual kind of frame which captures the nature of exploitation in the way you divided the world between those who get the parts.
Yeah.
Those who have it is a clear, sort of division, a kind of class division. Uh, and maybe that frame is required, and in a sense, what would mean make an equally provocative response in terms of how to make it fair. If this kind of desperation is not going, when people are ready to celebrate body parts, uh, perhaps, I mean, that needs to be addressed.
You mean the desperate situation of poverty?
Desperate to poverty in the sense that, as an interim measure until that desperation is not there, people get their kidneys worth of or organs worth of money, when they sell it. And state ensures that I don't know.
Well, then it again increase the debate. Why not prostitution should be legalized? Again, women are selling body. Women.
There are people who, I am one of the advocates of legalization of prostitution.
Yes, and because there are some countries which has legalized prostitution system. Yes. So, but in India, again, it is very difficult to legalize any system which involves body and body part because that again it evokes a strong ethical debate. Yes, please.
Yeah. No, see, as if selling a body part is assetization. So, as you're basically like selling a house or, what if it were treated like rent? In the sense that by giving the body part, somebody else is getting the chance to live and maybe earn or whatever it is. And so, I don't know, it sounds crazy, but so because that person might live for another 30 years. I mean, I'm not saying you can actually map one to one. So, if we were to instead say that it's a form of labor rather than assetization.
Mm-hmm.
So, your bodies will work for someone else. What if you were to take that attitude? Then you have to be paid. That work.
That's right. Different, always polarization all through the world.
Labor.
Yeah, all through several kind of ethical. I mean, both in for and against are given, and there is still no conclusion, and except Iran's. I mean, one of the major, I mean, which I also said that there should be, like giving health insurance and also prioritizing those donors when if there is issue if someone needs any organ in their family, they should be prioritized. There are incentivization was discussed, but not typical trade. Again, perhaps, especially in our country, because of the corruption, always the middleman, somewhere, something who takes the major part. If you know what, for example, Narega, if not 100 days of work, they should be compensated in every rural household. But hardly anyone gets compensation. Similar kind of examples are given. That again, giving the kidney, but maybe never receiving the compensation, even if in a legalized system. Because our system, again, it is never an efficient enough to provide the compensation. And Narega is a very strong example. Hardly anyone gets compensation. Got compensation. Yes, please.
Yeah, so my question arises from this as well, the supply and chain demand that we talk about. So my question arises from in the future, looking at the future, 5 decades, 6 decades later, when we already have 3D printing technology where you can actually print out organs, where you can print out artificial organs.
Yeah.
So when technology like this gets more advanced, when something like this gets, where I can go to my home and like 3D print something, like where will the demand go then? I would still assume that it will still be there because 3D printing itself is highly unstable and volatile, but still, if this volatility is like removed completely, and only 3D printed organs are non-legalized. Organs from donors are no longer allowed.
Mm-hmm.
What will happen? Will that completely change? Some part of it will brokers completely cease to exist, will donors also completely cease to exist. Only receivers and manufacturers, which will be, data scientists to actually make these organs.
And there are several experiments going on, I think, from animal organs and all. Well, if we do not have to do a major surgery on a human, I think that's a very good situation. But yeah, when that situation arrives, But for everything, what I feel, what always major difficulty in a country like us is very low political will to improve our healthcare system, from starting from basic healthcare to transplantation. So if that can be done, I think we have all the technical knowledge or the medical knowledge. But if, as I said, deceased donor program can be, I mean, we do not need live donors. If we have a very good deceased donor program, we don't need live donors. Everyone's health can be saved. I mean, the live donor's health can be saved. And even sometimes from the family, there are some, I mean, some elderly parents, they may not like to donate, but they want to save their children's life. They have to donate. So, with a huge population like us, we do not need live donors if we can invest properly and we may strengthen our disease donation program. But there is very poor political will in that, very low political will in strengthening the disease donor program, and which is can be most effective way to improve the system.
Okay.
I mean, so last part of my presentation was trying to discuss some of the major incidences which can have a surge in organ donation. Again, a major pandemic, which means increase in poverty and death, COVID-19. So there is, and again, the brokers took advantage. Can you hear me? So brokers took advantage of the social media after the COVID, after the pandemic, and then recruited actively the donors. So any major disaster, any major pandemic can surge the organ donation, organ sale. And then there are other very vulnerable people who are migrants and refugees. And Egypt is a case where, because it's a common transit country for migrants, and migrant populations provide a key source of organs for Cairo's transplant industry. And the large number of buyers are from the Gulf countries. And they have very limited social and welfare rights, primarily Sudanese, some Syrians, Eritreans, who are most vulnerable to the trade. And some African migrants are also getting increasingly become victims of organ trafficking. And again, the COVID-19 has compounded the already severe financial vulnerabilities of the migrants, and which has given a great profit to the brokers. The pandemic, loss of job, loss of work, and increase in organ sale. This is a case of Syrian refugee in Lebanon. So although for the actual price will be 40,000 to 200,000 in the international market, but he has only given 8,000. I've also compared the trade with China. So China, again, has a huge waiting list, and China was highly criticized one time, for decades they've been criticized for procuring organs from prisoners. Like they had, in 1984, they have enacted this provision and regulation of the use of dead bodies for organs. So, long time human rights groups have been criticizing China that they are taking organs, breaching human rights of the body. And sometimes they just expedite the crime to get organs. And mostly the senior government officials will be prioritized to get organs. So, and they never allowed any group or any scholarly researchers to do organs. So this is again some human rights group they studied. And also in 2015, now they have brought another act which is trying to do away with this procedure, and they are now investing disease management for them. But because hardly China is in our where you are born and investigate. So they were no much. But this was when this was a case like highly criticized, taking orders from business. Although there are also incidences of poverty. Right. So also there one case where they tried to hide organs in the box for carrying seafood, big eyes, and they were caught. A racket was caught. Then there was, I think, another famous case, perhaps from China, where a very young person sold kidney to buy an iPhone. And there were very severe complications after selling that. And foreign patients are primarily again from Asia, from Hong Kong, Taiwan, Singapore. Were ready to pay 30,000 or more. In Brazil, there was one time when there was in the military regime, there were reports that the boy they were kidnapped, socially and politically marginalized groups kidnapped for their bodies, and they became public after the transition began in Brazil. But now there's hardly any report of organ trading in Brazil because the organ donation rate is comparatively very good in Brazil. They have opt-out system. If you understand opt-out system, that you don't say no, then their organ is a property of the state. So India also has, so countries, Spain also have, countries which have opt-out system, they have their organ donation rate is much better. Spain actually is a very hard opt-out system, where organs are property of the state, was opt-out. And it's very difficult to implement such a system in India. This is a case from Brazil. There is a very poor, there's a slum where the poverty level is very, very high. And this was a case where 3 countries were involved. 4 countries were involved in this transplantation because the racket was operating from Israel. And the woman was from Brooklyn. The donor was recruited from Recife, a very famous slum of Brazil. Very high level of poverty. I think the donors were promised something $80 or $100 something, and which they have never seen. And the transplant was performed in South Africa because again South Africa is poor medical regulation. And the racket was operating from Israel. So it is such a transnational network. And then it was eventually caught. And although the racket was trying to expand their trade in other organs also, but they were caught. So again, slums, which are going on for progress to be. Almost was the end of my presentation, this is another part where I try to explore the gender and organ donation nexus, and which was really eye-opening because with what I realized that although organ donation is a neutral process, anyone can donate, like men, the organ donation is not officially, we are not asking your woman's thing. But the reality is, women predominate leading organ donation all over the world. They account for 2/3 of all organ donations, and men are the primary recipients. And even in terms of waiting list, also women are less likely than males to lead organ transplants. And this disparity exists among spousal donation, biological relatives, which means more mothers, sisters, and wives donate than fathers or brothers or husbands. These are some of the statistics everywhere this disparity exists. But when it comes to India, the spousal donation, which is very, very additional condition that more wives women than their husbands. When I was interviewing a nephrologist in Mumbai, and she was saying that when a wife's donate her duty, but when a husband is donating, it is like being a heroic, a great favor. And so although this disparity exists all over the world, but in a patriarchal society like India, the disparity is very well. Especially spousal connections, which increases the disparity. So one of the nephrologists was saying that whenever there is a discussion about donation in a family, the first they look at the mother, and if then there is voice, it's always there. It's not first. So as you can see, when it comes to India, these bombings, the 28% spousal and 92.5% are from wives. Again, more than 90% donation wife to husband. Yes, there is also there is also another thing that men are more likely to get this when more chronic diseases. But that is not only the reason. It's not the only medical reason which needs to be understood. It's more our cultural, socio-cultural practice and gender distributed society, which I mean, even directly or indirectly forces are going to do that. So one of the studies, again in Chennai, they say that 30 women were studied so long, and they were all women. When they were asked, why did you donate on your husband? Because they're poor. But irony is, all those women were working and they went back to work in 2 years. Because they are mostly going daily wage laborers, they need to earn money, they can't rest after a surgery. So all these women are also working, but because their husbands are considered the main breadwinner of the family, although they sometimes they're not even working, their health has to be preserved and we should work with them. Same in China too, that husbands are sometimes even in home receiving also the mother would prefer the son to receive on the own, something like that. So there is very, very high disparity, gender disparity, especially in developing countries. But to my surprise, this disparity, the gender disparity is very, very developing countries. So all over the world, it's women do it more than men. Very simple. So similarly, trade is also not, this was more donation, not trade. But trade is also not gender neutral. 12 studies show that organ travels from women to the bodies of women. So women return to work very soon post surgery. This is just further recommended further research stuff because sections of target shape poverty or gender discrimination. There is hardly any proper qualitative study that why mothers, why sisters, why wives, what are the factors that we compare them to to donate organ. There are hardly qualitative studies. So the more study required to explore to understand the factors which drive women to give up the organ and then
Also, yeah, I need to care.
that's the limits. And
We are women's bodies. Thinking of surrogate for
like it's like giving a second life. So I mean like if the child takes organ from the mother, that is kind of it's not no dead happen. When it's taking to someone else or taking with the husband, then it is like some taking something or someone. But with the mother, there is something. It's almost taking having a second life. So because women have been identified for giving, yeah, and so they are. But as long as they are doing voluntarily, civil. But there are likely, especially in poorer families, where women have less decision-making power, could be forced. that even you give me your kidney, otherwise you are not in the house anymore. So poor where there is closure also. Because there is no proper validity studies. I cannot say that whether there is voluntary or the saving the children's medicine. And even if the mother given a choice, okay.
You know, in fact, Shepherd was as the study, right? One of my project in this book, right? Nancy Shepherd.
That's what
Yeah. About Brazilian women who actually they in the children they babies.
Name their children.
Yeah, name yeah.
They name which is question that
Correct. I forgot the exact famous book. Oh, those that
she thinking no, so many she was
yeah, but it was very important writing.
Yes. So quite a few she was able. So
Yeah.
So, what is the medical aspect of clinical organ training? Like, are the people who do the surgeries trained doctors? And if so, why would they? So, why would someone also, I mean, at least in society, to sound double, very respected, relatively low paying salary, there's also an emphasis on ethics, So, why would a trained doctor participate in something like this?
well, some for money, some are not quite that they are engaging in a legal transplant. As I said, it's not easy.
Even for professional reasons, like them achieving every success in this adds to your seeing obligations and
So transplants one doctor as well,
so
right?
challenging thing you do, especially instance it's a big part of your scene.
So generally, how aware are the doctors about the fact that they're searching their operators from illegal, using illegal?
Well, some can be very bad an example of corruption, where they are located, they are in contact with the brokers and they are facilitating the trade. And in some, they suspect it can be, it is a paid case, but they can't do it. Some were told, like one of the doctors was saying that we suspect many times that there can be some extra money, but we have no way to go. Secondly, we have a police that we have to catch it over. Thirdly, our main aim is to save a life. So it becomes a very difficult choice for us, whether to save a life or then run an investigation system to catch a criminal. So it is a difficult situation. But most doctors, as I said, they are have been told they don't want to engage in it. Sometimes they say we just convert patients, but then they go to some back alley places and take their transplant and take it into disease and come back to us for treatment of that disease.
You mentioned that taking organs from disease people is really and you also mentioned religious myths and spiritual beliefs. And it just something came to mind because I've heard it a lot. People keep saying if you in the afterlife or if you go without an organ or something like that,
Born without bone.
not even just born with the journey somehow becomes a problem. And this is actually a very,
This is in which tradition?
I think it's a tragedy which was
Your body.
But it practice said that body should be whole.
Yeah,
It
That's
should
right.
practice,
It should be whole. It should not be.
yeah, and this is a very prevalent and a very
It's not only in this, and I think the same in Islam, that it should be guarded the way it is guarded, it should be a whole
The
body.
Egyptian believed in this as well. But if you didn't draw somebody with that hand, then the person would have any down.
So the afterlife comes separately, but it is again what I've been told, because I've interviewed priests also to understand their opinion. Ramakrishna, and I said, one of the priests in Ramakrishna, she said, I have donated my whole body for medical research. And it is more of a myth. Nothing like that. I honestly can support.
even if the person themselves.
I think it's fun.
Some better instances.
Even if the person themselves want to donate their body, usually the family doesn't or and after the person has died, there's not much They can say a lot.
That's true. Although they have to fulfill a diet on switch. They should.
Also, they, yeah, shop it up in some.
They found a way to wait for 12 days or 16 days or however long the cycle takes to release the the spirit from the body, breaking it and just taking it.
Yeah,
Maybe then they'll release the body.
You're okay with rotting. You're okay with the board to ash. And then not listening.
But we are usually improving, but I will say our poor medical system has a huge role to play in this. Because there are several people who also want to donate, but they don't have a place to donate. One of the case in 2013, published in this 2013, a case of a 65-year-old lady wanted to donate all the subjects, but that was in Indore, which didn't have any retrieval system except ours. So only organ she could donate was ours. So huge role the medical system, poor medical system. There are now people that are more aware. They also want to donate a lot of health, but they don't have sufficient. They have centers, nearby centers to donate this.
Whenever there's studies or statistics about renewable laboratory itself, the question I always ask is how something like this study, how do you get?
That's when I said these are all newspaper reports. Of course, I only studied at donors and receivers, and I could not say, I could not find any broken, but maybe I should have visited the hospitals a few times, maybe I may have found someone. But these are all newspaper reports. Similar question I asked the buyers also, where do you find them? So it's again newspapers.
Advertisements.
Yes, yes. And then say, oh, beautiful. Someone, after I've done my research, I get emails. I want to sell my kidney. Please, I'm 24. I'm very poor. I want to sell my kidney. So please, this is my phone number. Please contact me. In my Cambridge email ID, I get these notes.
One curiosity.
Yes, please.
What drove you into this kind of business? What is the motive of helping get into this?
This project was by team, it's not mine. It's not mine. I was just recruited to study the Indian situation. And so when I made this project was just about to take off, and it was a multi-country project, and the project lead was a criminologist, and he was studying this, and he was looking for someone who specializes in this situation. And I already worked in human trafficking. I was implementing consultant in the domain for 3 years. And so it just matched. And then I submitted a research proposal to the sector from there.
I don't know how much of it is true, but I heard that if you sign up to big organization and if you get into an accident or something like that, and the doctors know that you're allowed to do it, they don't make much of it.
Yes, there is also another rate I have heard about it, which prevents, which is like, again, how much trust. That is another part of this. Trust in healthcare, like how much you trust the doctors that they will make an effort to save you first. And secondly, your organ will go to a right person. Not as someone that doctors will go or like you or something like that. I mean, it's a category. So trust in healthcare also impacts the organization.
Yeah.
I have also heard that I don't know how that how to actually confirm it. So
Yeah, and we talked about like previous. See, I am talking about this. I have to actually. Okay. So we talk about like affection, provision through affection, care through affection, and then it comes to your mind like, apart from monetary gain, like why do people do this? Like, what's this human condition that happens inside of us? Like, why do me as a person, want to take care of somebody in my community? And it turns out it's a very like old human condition, a human condition, or like since for quite a few years back in Iraq, there was a skeleton which was unearthed. The skeleton, one of its post orbitals was damaged. One of the urinary canals was seen from birth. The person couldn't hear. One of the arms was born with like it was a deformation, so the arm was cut off later on in the age, and the person also had a chronic limp inside them. But this skeleton, of course, I have right here because one of the arms is the same. The skeleton is still debatable at least 40s or like in his 50s. So the person at least lived up to a high age, even with all the deformities and illnesses and affections. But this skeleton turns out is not even human. It's not. It's a Neanderthal. Yeah, it's a Neanderthal. It's named Shenadar 1. If you can, it's a Turkish Iranian skeleton, Shenadar 1. Formation at Shenadar cave, that's why it's named that. So it shows that humanity, or well, hominids as a whole, have always had this sort of affection through care. Like if somebody doesn't have an arm, I'll be there. If somebody doesn't know how to walk, like you can come and walk with me. And he was like, near him, I found pots and small trinkets that he might have used, or that people around him might have used. So even if he was like, he couldn't walk around, like he was given jobs that, like, okay, you can like help around a bit or something. So sometimes it might seem like in the globalized age, like you have like, oh, I want to donate my organ because at least I will get some money out of it. But these cases where somebody is like, okay, I want to genuinely donate my organ because like even after that, like when I die, I'll use my organs. So like if this person is going to use my organs, that primitive feeling is very natural to come from us. So I think we should take that into consideration as well. Like when checking it, and that's suspicious. I like some of you like you don't look at people like, usually that's selfless. Like, will you really donate this and then say no money for okay? And I think that I think somehow we need to like some work on that, bring that trust back. But it's hard. It's like but
This is the blood donation that you have.
Maybe
So many
Yeah.
come from.
Because the donation should go on free street, that's like we have to
Should we?
And no major international organizations, I mean, all related on altruistic donation, or like spatial donation.
So we call this event to an end. Thank you so much for giving us a rich presentation on something that we are really ill-informed about. How we can look at all. Yeah, so on behalf of everyone, sorry we couldn't have a bigger crowd because we have a further event right now. So it's been so.
Also, this is a midterm,
It's a big term and
so students could
back.
join and then
Yeah.
other
More
engagements.
matter of time.
Apologies,
Yeah, some
sincere apologies.
But
But
otherwise it was
those
quite.
was here.
Those of us who we benefited.
Definitely engaged with.
Thank you.
Concerned with the subject.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.